Build a mind so strong it scares people. There is a truth many people dare not admit. Most of us live with a fragile mind. Just one criticism from a boss, one malicious comment on the internet, or a single phone call, carrying bad news from family, and suddenly all our confidence collapses. We lose sleep, we become restless, consumed by endless worry. And at times, even the slightest mishap is enough to shake our entire inner world. Have you ever found yourself in that place? I remember once after a tense meeting at work. Just one cold remark from my superior kept me silent for hours. I thought my career had ended right there. My mind felt like a glass cup ready to shatter at the slightest touch. And the truth is, I was not alone. Millions still live this way, easily hurt, lost, and swept away by the turbulence of the outside world. But then sometimes we encounter a very different kind of person. They walk into a room without saying a word or flaunting achievements, yet their presence commands attention. When they look at you, it is not with harshness or authority, but with stillness and invisible strength radiating from within. We cannot explain it, we only sense it. This is someone whose mind has been trained to be unbreakable. We often believe strength lies in muscle money or status. But look closely, muscles fade with age, wealth can vanish, in a single crisis status can be replaced overnight. If truly trained, only one thing will remain with us for life: mental strength. A strong mind not only carries you through storms, but also earns the respect of others without you having to demand it. I once asked myself, why can some stand firm in the storm while so many others, including the old version of me, break so easily? The answer came when I stumbled upon the words of Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher. He wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your judgment about it. And you have the power to revoke this judgment at any moment." Those words tore through the veil in my mind. All along, I thought the enemy was my boss, the pressure, the unpredictable crises out there. But no, the true enemy was my weak mind, the way I allowed myself to be conquered. And from that moment, I began the journey of training the mind. This journey has no magic, no shortcuts. It is filled with collisions, days of sitting alone, confronting my fears, and countless times of falling and rising again. But I discovered step by step that when you begin to control your reactions, you become free. You are no longer a puppet of circumstances. You are no longer suffocated by the fear of failure or the gaze of others. And in that very moment, you begin to radiate a strength that needs no boasting. Stoic philosophy has lived on for over 2,000 years, yet its value has never faded. Because humans today are no different from humans of the past, always facing loss, betrayal, illness, and failure. We cannot erase all suffering, but we can forge a mind hard enough that nothing can break us. That is the silent strength anyone can build. This is the journey I want to share with you in this video: how to build a mind so strong that it makes others hold you in respect, not through fancy words, not through noise, but through the quiet force of presence, discipline, and daily training. Stay with me if you have ever felt your mind fragile and easy to break. Together, we will dive into how the ancients, from warriors like Musashi to Stoic philosophers, trained an unyielding will, and more importantly, how you can apply it to your modern life today. And if you wish to continue this disciplined journey with us, do not forget to subscribe to the channel. Not just to follow a single video, but to build for yourself a lasting path, a place where you reclaim peace, self-mastery, and inner strength no force outside of you can ever touch. Step 1. Face the truth. A weak mind is not fate, it is a habit. There is a truth many people do not want to face. Most of the weakness in the mind does not come from fate or genetics, but from the habits we repeat daily. We are used to complaining instead of acting, and running away from difficulties instead of confronting them. And we are used to seeking short-term pleasures instead of building long-term foundations. And those habits over time carve themselves into the brain like a worn path, so that whenever we face challenges, we follow the same old trail: fear, hesitation, or giving up. Have you noticed when faced with work pressure, some people panic, their heart races, their mind spins out of control? Others, even in more intense situations, remain calm, handling things step by step as if they had been trained their whole life for that moment. The difference is not in luck or talent, but in how they have trained their minds daily. A weak mind is not a life sentence. It is simply the result of continuously choosing the easy path. And the easy path, according to Marcus Aurelius, is the one that makes human beings enslaved to external circumstances. He once wrote, "If you are pained by anything external, it is not this thing that harms you, but your judgment about it. And this judgment you have the power to revoke at any moment." In other words, the greatest weakness of the mind is not in outside pressure, but in how we perceive and respond to it. I still remember a former colleague always terrified of the boss's anger. Just the sound of his shoes in the hallway would turn his face pale, his hands trembling, his whole day paralyzed. He often told himself, "I was born weak, I can never be strong." But the truth was different. He was not born weak. He repeated a weak response so often that it became a habit. And believe me, any habit can be changed if we are willing to begin. Stoic philosophy has a basic principle. The human mind is shaped by what it repeats daily. Just like a muscle, if it stays idle, it wastes away. The mind is the same. It becomes weak if we let it drift with emotions, fears, and indulgence. But if we train it through challenges, discipline, and accepting difficulties, it becomes strong enough that nothing can break it. Look at modern life. Many people switch on their phones each morning when they open their eyes. They scroll through news, social media, emails, notifications, and let countless trivial things assault their brain. Their mind is trained to react instead of act in the first hour of the day. By noon, they complain about stress. By night, they try to soothe themselves by shopping, buying junk food, or watching Netflix. The loop repeats daily, and they sink deeper into believing they are not strong enough to change. But if we pause and face the truth, we will see that weakness is not destiny. It is just a habit nurtured by small daily choices. Epictetus once reminded us, men are disturbed not by things but by the views which they take of them. This means that we have trained ourselves to see things with a helpless gaze. And we can just as well train ourselves to see differently with firmness, with strength. To see this more clearly, remember moments when you overcame something that once felt impossible. Maybe it was a presentation that robbed you of sleep, but you still delivered it. Perhaps it was a relationship you thought you would never escape, but you did, and you stood firm. What changed? Not the world around you, but how you spoke to yourself in that moment. You trained your mind even briefly to choose a strong response instead of surrender. If it happened once, it can happen again and again until it becomes a way of life. Therefore, the first step in building a mind so strong that others take notice is not to learn lofty philosophies, nor to chase external validation. The first step is to face the truth your weakness results from weak habits, and habits can be changed. As Seneca once said, "Courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over the habit of fear." Once you realize a weakness is not your essence, but merely a path you have walked too long, you see the door open. You can train the mind just like training a muscle one day at a time. Many will ask, but where do I begin? I have been weak for too long. The answer is simple. Begin by observing your daily reactions. When someone criticizes you, how do you respond? When a plan fails, what do you say to yourself? When you fear, do you run away or dare to stand still for a few seconds to face it? Those small moments are where you practice a habit, weak or strong. And from the moment you recognize this, you are already halfway through step one. Because only when you dare to face the truth can you see clearly. A weak mind is not fate, it is the outcome of choice. And once you have the power to choose, you have the power to change. That is why step one is so important. It is like looking in the mirror, but instead of your face, you see your habits and reflexes. If you have been training yourself to be weak, you can just as undoubtedly train yourself to be strong. but recognizing the truth is not enough. The Stoics remind us that right thinking must be joined with right action. To change, we must train the mind through small deeds repeated every day. Step 2. Train discipline through small actions. Each habit becomes strength. Step 2. Train discipline through small actions. Each habit becomes strength. Have you noticed this? The people you admire for their steadiness are rarely born geniuses. They don't need to act superior, nor do they talk endlessly about positive thinking or secrets to success. What they share in common is discipline, and discipline never falls from the sky. It is formed through small actions repeated repeatedly until it becomes the backbone of the mind. So when you ask yourself, how can I become stronger? Don't look for the answer in distant, unrealistic plans. Start with the smallest things in your daily life. A friend of mine who worked in finance, a field full of stress, pressure, and deadlines, used to have the habit of oversleeping, arriving at the office late, and always excusing himself with, "I'm just not a morning person." But one day he decided to change just one thing: wake up 30 minutes earlier. At first, I only had time for a few stretches. After a month, the 30 minutes became an hour, and the stretches became reading and taking notes. The result was better health, calmness, and readiness of mind before even stepping into the office. You see, a small habit can change an entire presence. Discipline is not a meaningless restriction. It is a tool that reminds the mind, I am in control of myself, not at the mercy of circumstances. The ancient Stoics understood this very well. Epictetus once said, "It is not things themselves that disturb us, but the way we react to them." And the way we react often springs from the habits we have trained beforehand. If you have willfully trained laziness, you will respond by avoiding. If you have trained discipline, you will react with action. To picture this more clearly, think of going to the gym. You cannot expect muscles to appear after lifting weights once. Strength comes from persistence, from repetition, day after day. Training the mind is no different. Discipline is the physical workout for the intellect. I remember once reading an interview with a marathon runner. He said every training session had a moment when he wanted to quit, when his legs were burning, his heart pounding, his mind screaming to stop. But what he was training was not just muscle or breath. It was the discipline of not giving up. I just take one more step, then one more button, and before I know it, I've crossed the finish line. These are simple words, but that repetition built an iron spirit. You can begin to train discipline in modern life with tiny actions. Make your bed immediately after waking. Finish one difficult task before touching your phone. Write down 3 things you must do and commit to completing them that day. These may sound trivial, but they signal to your brain, I can trust myself. And once you begin to trust your word, inner strength grows day by day. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor philosopher, once reminded himself, do not say to yourself, I cannot do that. Instead, think, I cannot refuse to do it as a human being. For him, discipline was not just a habit, but a definition of dignity. Every small action, whether walking in a storm or writing quietly in his journal, was his way of staying true to the path. And have you noticed when disciplined in small matters, they can stand firm more easily in great ones? When a crisis strikes, they do not panic because their mind have been trained in countless minor collisions. Like a fighter who drills a basic strike thousands of times, the body reacts without trembling in battle. So remember, true strength does not come from fleeting bursts of motivation, but from daily discipline. Motivation fades. Habits will save you. And those small, seemingly insignificant actions are the bricks that build the fortress of your mind. Yet there is an even greater challenge. You may keep discipline and maintain habits, but one sudden anger, one insult, or one moment of emotional pressure can bring down all the calm you have built in seconds. The ancients stressed that body discipline is not enough. You must also train discipline of the emotions. And from here, the journey leads us to the next vital step, learning to master your mind in the heart of the storm. Step 3, master your emotions. Turn the storm into calm. Nothing makes us lose control more easily than our emotions. You may keep a strict workout routine, eat with discipline, work with order, but in a single flash of anger, one sudden insult, or a desperate situation, all the self-mastery you have built can shatter instantly. Epictetus emphasized this. We are not disturbed by things, but by the views we take of them. Emotions are the doorway through which weakness returns. Remember the last time you were so angry your whole body shook. Maybe it was during an argument with a colleague when someone mistreated you. Or something simpler, being stuck in traffic for hours and someone cuts in front of you as if you were invisible. In that moment, you were no longer yourself. You were pulled into the whirlpool of emotion, letting anger dictate your actions instead of reason. The irony is, when the storm of anger passed, you felt drained, regretful, and asked yourself, why did I lose control so easily? The Stoics never denied emotion. They never told you to turn into stone, unable to feel joy or sorrow. They taught this emotions are guests, but reason is the host. Guests may come, but the authority to act must always remain with the host. Marcus Aurelius once wrote in Meditations, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment. Modern science confirms the same truth. When emotions flare, the limbic system, especially the amygdala, takes control. That is why we act impulsively. But if we practice pausing for a few seconds before reacting, the prefrontal cortex has time to engage, restoring reason. This small habit, pause, breathe, observe, is a powerful weapon the Stoics practiced more than 2,000 years ago. I remember once witnessing a friend handle a situation with extraordinary calm. We were at a cafe and the server mixed up the order, reacting with irritation. If it had been me in the past, I would have argued just to set things straight. But my friend smiled softly and said, "No problem, we can wait a little longer." Then he turned back to our conversation as if nothing had happened. What struck me was how his calmness changed the entire atmosphere. The server soon apologized and everything was resolved peacefully. He laughed when I asked for his secret. I don't give other people the right to control my emotions. That is Stoicism in modern life. Others may behave poorly, situations may turn ugly, but you always have the right to choose your response. You can react like a slave to emotions, shouting, raging, sulking, or like a free person, calm, observant, and guided by reason. And here is the paradox: calmness earns respect, even fear. People realize that you cannot be easily shaken. But how do you train this ability? It cannot stay as a theory in the mind. It must be practiced. One method I use is what I call simulated storms. Each day I put myself into small, uncomfortable situations, not answering messages immediately, waiting longer in line, or deliberately doing something slowly instead of rushing. These small tests force me to watch my restlessness and irritation, then breathe until they pass. Gradually, I found I could endure more. And when real storms came, my mind no longer panicked as before. Another method the ancient Stoics used was premeditatio malorum, imagining misfortune ahead of time. Before beginning his day, Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "Today I will meet the arrogant, the selfish, the treacherous." It may sound negative, but it is a mental vaccine. When you have prepared in advance, you are no longer shocked or enraged when these things happen. You face them calmly, as if to say, I expected this. To master emotions is not to hide pain or fear. It is to look directly at them and accept them, but not allow them to decide your actions. Epictetus taught, it is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. And that choice, that freedom, is the most precious gift. When you train calmness in the storm, you will notice something strange. People treat you cautiously. Not because you are aggressive, but because you are not easily moved. In a world where everyone reacts impulsively, the one who can remain silent, observe, and act from reason becomes an unpredictable force. This is the fear the Stoics spoke of, the immovable calm like stone that nothing can disturb. And once you begin to master your emotions, you will discover there is still one root fear. Most of us avoid the fear of death. It hides in every decision, every worry, every hesitation. The Stoics knew that you are not truly free until you make peace with the thought of death. And so the journey now leads us to the next step, facing the unavoidable learning, to look directly at the finiteness of life so that nothing can ever chain you again. Step 4, confront death, touch absolute freedom. There is a truth we all know, yet spend our lives avoiding. Every one of us will die, you, me, our loved ones. No one is exempt. And yet in modern life, death has become a taboo. We rush past funerals, we avoid conversations about illness, aging, or loss. But this very avoidance lets fear quietly gnaw at us. It turns into anxiety, into restless haste, into an obsession with clinging to everything, money, reputation, relationships, as if letting go meant vanishing. The Stoics saw it differently. They did not merely accept death, they deliberately meditated on it every day. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Do not act as if you were going to live 10,000 years. Death hangs over you. Be good while you live, while it is in your power." To him, death was not the enemy, but the most outstanding teacher, urging us to live urgently and rightly. I remember speaking with a man who had just survived a severe car accident. He told me that when the car rolled over and he was trapped inside, the only thought in his mind was not, "I'm about to lose this car," or "I'll miss work tomorrow." He thought only of his wife and children, and one sentence kept echoing in his head, "I wish I had spent more time with them." By fortune, he survived. But from that day, he changed completely. He left his high-paying but exhausting job and chose another that allowed him to be home for dinner every night. He said, "When I saw death close, I finally understood what matters." This is what the Stoics called memento mori, remember that you will die. Not to make you pessimistic, but to wake you up. When we dare to look directly at death, we finally see that life is a gift and every moment is an unrepeatable opportunity. Death teaches not only to treasure time, but also to release fear. Think about it. How often have you stayed silent instead of speaking the truth because you feared being disliked? How often have you kept from chasing a dream because you feared failure? How many times have you stayed in a toxic relationship because you feared loneliness? But if you accept that death could come at any moment, those fears suddenly shrink. You are no longer haunted by other people's opinions or short-term risks, because in the end, everything ends. And that truth gives you strength with nothing to lose, nothing can bind you. One striking example is the philosopher Seneca. In his letters, he often spoke of death with ease, as if describing a journey already scheduled. When Emperor Nero ordered him to take his own life, Seneca did not weep or beg. He calmly opened his veins, conversed with his friends until his last breath, and used that moment to teach them about freedom before death. That was not recklessness, it was the highest form of liberty. For as Seneca once said, "He who has learned how to die has unlearned how to be a slave." In modern life, you don't need to wait until death is near to learn this lesson. You can start with simple practices. Each morning, remind yourself today could be the last. Not to frighten yourself, but to live awake. You will find you waste less time, argue less over trivial things, and choose more carefully what matters most. Another way is to confront finiteness directly. I once joined an exercise where you lie down, close your eyes, and imagine this is your final moment. The experience is powerful. When you truly picture the journey ending, you ask, what regrets remain? What words have I not spoken, and what actions have been undone? And you rise with a resolve to delay no more. The paradox is this: you can live when you make peace with death. You no longer obsess over perfection, fear failure because you know everything passes. and that very awareness makes you unshakable. Others may take your possessions, your reputation, even your body, but they cannot touch a mind at peace with death. That is why those who have endured great trials, serious illness, accidents, will often carry a quiet stillness within them. They have seen finiteness with their own eyes and no longer live under the illusion of immortality. Stand beside them and you feel a strange energy, humble yet unbreakable. It is freedom before death that creates this strength. And you see, this is the bridge to one of life's great paradoxes. To gain true freedom and strength, you must pass through your deepest fear. Once you have faced and accepted death, what else in life can make you tremble? Once you know you will lose everything, you finally learn to savor each moment instead of clinging in vain. But still another challenge remains, one more subtle. Not the distant reality of death, but the way we face the weaker self each day. The self that avoids hardship, the self that hides in comfort. The Stoics call this the silent enemy of growth, weakness disguised as self-love. And this is where the journey now leads to the next step, learning to distinguish between proper care and avoidance so that you can forge a strong mind without falling into illusion. Step 5, distinguish self-care from escapism. Build strength instead of weakness. There is a paradox of our age. Never before have people had so many self-care solutions, from spas, yoga, meditation apps, to digital detox days, yet never have we felt so exhausted and fragile. We think we care for ourselves, but often only find ways to escape reality. Let's be honest, how often have you used "I need to rest" to avoid a challenging task? How frequently have you rewarded yourself with binge-watching Netflix after a discouraging day, only to feel emptier instead of refreshed? How often have you chosen to treat keeping the peace as a reason not to say what must be told in a relationship, only for that silence to drain you dry slowly? That is not care. That is avoidance. The Stoics did not deny the need for rest. Marcus Aurelius wrote that even a strong mind needs quiet intervals for recovery, but he drew a sharp line: rest to return stronger, not rest that makes you weaker. Seneca warned, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." And the most significant waste is when we turn self-care into an excuse for postponing life. I recall a friend of mine. He used to complain that work was too stressful, so he rewarded himself with 3 or 4 hours of online gaming each evening. He called it stress relief. But strangely, he only grew more tired, more irritable, less motivated for work. One day he decided to change. Instead of 4 hours of gaming, he spent 1 hour exercising, 30 minutes journaling, then went to bed earlier. The result was completely different. He told me, "Turns out I wasn't relieving stress, I was suppressing it, and the next morning it came back even heavier." That is the difference between proper care and avoidance. The Stoics taught that a strong mind does not seek what is comfortable, but what is useful. Rest, too, must have a purpose to restore strength, prepare for action, and return with clarity. Otherwise, rest is nothing but decline wrapped in sweetness. Look at life around us. How many people choose drinking to forget sadness? Yet the sadness doesn't vanish. It sinks deeper and returns heavier. How many choose shopping for happiness? But that joy lasts only moments, traded later for debt. How many choose silence to keep harmony? But that silence cracks the bond. These ways may offer temporary relief, but they never solve the root. They only train us to keep running away. And when avoidance becomes a habit, the mind grows weaker and weaker. Proper care, on the other hand, demands that we face things. Do you feel tired from pressure? Give yourself a walk outdoors, breathe and reflect. You feel anxious? Please write down your worries and look at them with reason. What is within your control and what is not? Do you feel suffocated in a relationship? Set aside time for an honest conversation instead of withering in silence. This is proper self-care. It does not avoid it, nourishes strength so you can continue. Another crucial point, caring for yourself, it does not mean indulging yourself. Many believe I deserve comfort, and then let go of discipline, overeating, staying up late, overspending. But the Stoic will ask, does this make you stronger? Does this make you live better than yesterday? If the answer is no, then it is not care, it is self-harm. I remember a line from Epictetus, "It is not pleasures that make us free, but discipline." It sounds paradoxical, but it is true. Freedom does not come from satisfying every desire, but from mastering desire itself. The more disciplined you are, the freer you are from dependency. And this is the essence of proper care, cultivating inner freedom. So how do we distinguish the two? A simple question. After this, am I stronger or weaker? If you wake up tired and guilty after a night of binge watching, that was avoidance. If after a gym session you wake refreshed and confident, that was care. If after silence you feel distant and resentful, that was avoidance. If after speaking the truth you feel lighter and closer, that was care. The strong mind does not evade uncomfortable truths. It learns to face them with calm, and for that reason it does not need temporary anesthetics. It builds strength from within, through small choices, through consistent actions. And when you clearly distinguish care from avoidance, you see that what we call mental strength is not something far away. It is built from the most minor things: going to bed on time, speaking honestly, refusing temptation once, and working out even when you feel lazy. Each small act repeated gradually builds the kind of strength that commands respect. This step is crucial because it helps you stay awake in a world drowning in easy escapes. Others may not understand. They may call you rigid when you decline a party to keep your training schedule. They may call you difficult when you speak the truth instead of staying silent. But those very choices are the foundation of resilience. And in time, people will see you are not difficult. You are unshakable. And here lies the bridge to a deeper layer of strength. Once you master habits and discern genuine care from avoidance, you must face an even subtler enemy, the noise inside your mind. And to forge a mind strong enough to command respect, you must now learn the next art, the art of creating inner silence. Step 6, create inner silence. Build the fortress within. There is a strange truth about modern life. We live in the noisiest world in history, yet we fear silence most. The moment we open our eyes, notifications flash across our phone screens. On the streets, horns blaring. At work, endless meetings. At home, we are surrounded by television, social media, background music, and short videos. Almost no one dares to sit still with nothing to do, hear, or watch. Turn off the phone and sit in a quiet room for just 5 minutes. Many already feel restless, even driven mad. Why? Because in silence, we are forced to face ourselves, and that is the most uncomfortable encounter of all. The ancients understood the power of silence. Musashi spent his final years in a cave writing the Book of Five Rings in solitude. Marcus Aurelius wrote meditations not amidst cheers of the crowd, but in a military tent on the battlefield, where he was compelled to converse with himself. Seneca once said, "He who does not know how to live alone has never known how to be a friend." Silence is not emptiness. It is a necessary space where the mind washes off the world's dust. Think back to the last time you felt truly at peace. Perhaps it was during an early morning walk when the city was still asleep. It could be a moment sitting by the ocean, listening only to the steady rhythm of waves. Perhaps it was a night when you turned off all the lights, sitting quietly as moonlight streamed through the window. These moments require no applause or audience, yet they deeply nourish the soul. The problem is, instead of cultivating silence, we often run away from it. One student once told me he couldn't meditate. Every time he sat down and closed his eyes, his mind turned into a market, unfinished tasks, looming deadlines, arguments with his girlfriend, worries about rent. He said, "Silence makes me feel weaker." But that was the sign of a mind never trained before. Just like your first time in the gym, muscles trembling from weakness. But you grow stronger if you stay lift a little each day and breathe through the strain. The mind is the same. Silence does not make you weak. It exposes weakness so you can begin to train. In life, silence is the fortress of the mind. When the world outside is chaos, when others are swept into mass panic, the one who knows how to retreat into silence keeps clarity. In the middle of a market crash, a wise merchant will not decide by the herd, but withdraw into his silent chamber. A pause, a breath, a separate space to think clearly. Upon hearing terrible news, a father does not smash or scream, but chooses silence, listening to himself before acting. That silence is what sets them apart. Silence does not mean meditating for hours on a mountaintop. Sometimes it is simply turning off your phone 30 minutes before bed, reading a page of Stoic philosophy, and writing a few lines in your journal about the day. This is active silence, a deliberate choice not to let the world invade your mind. And the more you practice, the less frightening silence becomes. It turns into a companion, an actual safe space different from the false safety of endless distractions. I recall attending an emergency meeting once. The room was tense. Everyone is talking, everyone is competing, and everyone is trying to prove themselves right. But one man stayed nearly silent, only listening. When the room was exhausted, he finally spoke a short sentence that solved the problem entirely. At that moment, I understood that the power of silence is not in saying nothing, but in not being forced to speak. His mind was steady enough not to display itself, and that was why his one sentence carried more weight than all the noise before it. Today's world pushes us to race who speaks faster, posts more, and captures attention better. But a Stoic mind chooses the opposite path, the more important, the quieter. The stronger, the less display. For as Seneca wrote, a tranquil soul is the sign of great strength. When you build inner silence, you become the mountain unmoved by the storm. And this is the crucial step before the final challenge. Because here's the truth. Even if you build habits, control emotions, and overcome fear, without silence, the noise outside can still drag you back. But once silence has become your fortress, you realize nothing can touch your core. And from that place, you are ready to reach the highest level, living with an unshakable spirit no matter what life throws at you. Step 7. The unyielding attitude. Nothing can break a mind that has been forged strong. When you have walked through the 6 steps before facing the truth-building discipline, through small actions, mastering emotions, confronting fear, turning adversity into your forge, and creating inner silence, you already hold the hardest stones to build a fortress of the mind. But there is still one final layer, the coating that makes it unbreakable, the unyielding attitude. This is not merely a skill, it is a declaration of life. It is the way you stand upright before the world, no matter what the world throws at you. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If something external causes you pain, it is not the thing itself that disturbs you, but your judgment of it. And you can erase that judgment at any moment." These words are like the key to the final treasure. True strength does not lie in avoiding storms, but in standing firm within them. Picture a tree. Fierce winds may bend its branches and strip its leaves bare, but roots sunk deep in the earth mean it will never break. Humans are the same. Outside, you may lose your job, suffer betrayal, be despised, even lose every possession. But if the roots within your which beliefs, principles, your resolve are deep enough, nothing can break you. Others may hurt you, but they cannot make you surrender. I remember a close friend of mine who went bankrupt. From being a businessman with dozens of employees, he became penniless in months. But I admired not how he rebuilt wealth, but his attitude in the darkest days. When everyone abandoned him, he smiled and said, "I still have my hands and mind. What I lost was only the surface. The most important thing is that no one has taken." That conviction kept him from collapsing. And years later, he returned, not only rebuilding a new business, but stronger than before, because he had something few people ever gain: an unyielding mind. The remarkable thing is that the unyielding are not always the victors. They fail as much as anyone, often more. But the difference is this: they do not treat failure as the end, but as a test. As Seneca once wrote, "Fire tests gold, adversity tests virtue." The one with an unyielding attitude knows every crack, every fall, only hardens them further. In daily life, you can see this image in very ordinary people. A single mother working 2 jobs, collapsing with exhaustion each night, yet never giving up because she believes her child deserves a better future. A student working and studying, sleeping only a few hours yet, refusing to quit. A veteran who lost both legs became a marathon runner with prosthetics. This is the unyielding attitude. It was not given to them, it was the life they chose. Stoicism teaches, we cannot choose what happens, but we can always choose our attitude. And it is attitude that makes the difference. The weak wait for circumstances to change. The substantial change itself. The weak are paralyzed by fear. The intense turned fear into fuel. The weak ask, why me? The strong ask, what can I do with this? The unyielding attitude is not the same as numbness. It does not mean pretending you feel no pain when you hurt, no fear when you tremble. It means admitting, yes, I hurt, yes, I fear, but I will not allow those emotions to decide the course of my life. I still move forward even while shaking. I still choose to rise even when the world tells me to stay down. That is true strength, not perfection, but persistence. And when you carry that attitude into life, you become something different. Others may see you as cold, even intimidating, not because you pose a threat, but because you cannot be easily swayed. You are no longer ruled by praise or blame. You no longer live to please. You walk with self-possession, which makes those who live in weakness step back. Here you discover a closed circle. The unyielding attitude is not an end, but the natural result of the 6 steps before, and at the same time it feeds back into them. One who has embraced silence, confronted fear, and disciplined the self will find unyieldingness blooming like a flower after winter. And when this attitude appears, it strengthens your silence, discipline, and courage. At this point, you have built a strong mind and forged a mind that cannot be broken, a fortress that no outside force can conquer. Others may strip much from you, but never take the spirit. And once you have it, you live with greater strength and inspire those around you. And this brings us to the final stage, the difference between a strong mind and a mind that leaves a lasting mark. Fortresses are not only places to shelter, they can also become lighthouses that guide others. That is when we speak of the legacy of a steadfast mind, the imprint left on the world even long after you are gone. Conclusion: the legacy of a steadfast mind. If you have come this far, you are no longer searching for shortcuts to make life easier. You seek to build something enduring, a mind strong enough to protect yourself and leave an imprint on those who come after. And this is what truly matters. A strong mind is not only a shield against adversity, but a torch that can illuminate others. Think about the people we admire in history or everyday life. What did they leave behind? Not money, not fleeting fame, but spirit. Socrates left humanity the practice of relentless questioning. Marcus Aurelius left Meditations, a book he never wrote to publish, yet thousands of years later still sustains millions of minds. Or in ordinary life, perhaps it was a teacher who believed in you when you couldn't believe in yourself, a mother who held her faith when the family collapsed, a friend who stayed when the world turned away. What did they share in common? They built steadfast minds, and those minds radiated outward. They did not merely survive trials, but turned their lives into living proof of inner strength. And their most significant legacy was not possessions, but a way of thinking, seeing, and standing firm in storms. Stoicism has a beautiful principle. The best things are not to be kept for oneself. A steadfast mind is the same. It is not a fortress closed to the world, but a lighthouse open to all. The more you share it, the brighter its light. You may think of yourself as small, but never forget that one word spoken when another is about to fall And one act taken when another hesitates can alter the course of an entire life. An old professor told one of our class, "I do not teach you to remember my name. I teach so that you will hear your voice again when hardship comes stronger, clearer." That was his legacy, not detailed lectures, but a way of thinking etched into his students' minds. And honestly, years later, when I stood before hard choices, I did not recall his formulas, but remembered his calmness. That was enough to steady me. So how can you leave such a legacy? You don't need to be a president or philosopher. You leave it daily in how you respond to hardship, hold to principles, and refuse to compromise with what is wrong. Others watch and they learn, even if you never speak a word. Children learn resilience from parents. Employees learn calmness from leaders. Friends learn courage from each other. The beauty is, once you have forged a steadfast mind, its legacy spreads without effort. It radiates naturally like the fragrance of a flower that never needs to advertise. Others will notice, will be touched, will remember. And sometimes one moment of you not breaking is enough for someone else to find the strength to rise. When we think of legacy, many think of death. But in truth, the legacy of the mind is planted while you live. Each day you are writing the story you will leave behind. Every action, every word, every attitude you show in adversity is carved into the memory of those around you. The question is, what legacy are you leaving? An image of weakness or a testimony of resilience? The Stoics remind us that we cannot avoid death, but we can choose how to live when we live. And that is the most crucial choice, to live in such a way that when you are gone, something remains. You cannot carry money or fame beyond the grave, but you can leave behind the legacy of a strong mind so that when someone faces pain, they will remember there was once someone who chose to stand firm. And so can they. So remember, building a steadfast mind is not only for you, for those you may never meet, but who will be influenced by how you live. Every time you choose discipline over indulgence, calmness over blind reaction, courage over fear, you plant a seed, and that seed will take root in the lives around you. Now pause for a moment. Ask yourself, if one day you disappear, what part of your mind will remain in others? The answer to that question is your legacy. If you find this journey meaningful, then join me in continuing to share and spread Stoic lessons to more people. Because when one person builds a steadfast mind, the whole community grows stronger. Don't forget to subscribe and share this message with someone who needs it. Not for the sake of this channel, but so that the legacy of this strength does not end with you, but flows outward, touching many lives. Live not only for the present, but for the legacy of spirit you will leave. And remember, your most significant strength is not in muscle, not in status, but in a mind that nothing can break.